Hello everybody, and thanks for watching my second video here. I just started making videos yesterday, so bear with me if it's not all that professional. But over the last year, almost year and a half, I learned a lot about diet and exercise that in a lot of ways were mind-boggling to me because they were quite a departure from the information I was raised with. And I was able to go through transformation myself. So the transformation is based on information, but it's both mental and physical. I think almost everybody that gets on a better diet realizes they feel better. They're in a better mood. They think clearer. They aren't as tired. They don't get tired after lunch like they used to or whatever. They just have more energy and they're more upbeat. They're more positive, and of course, you just feel like you can do more, you can handle more, and you enjoy things more. So, as I mentioned in the first video, my health greatly improved. I thought I was just getting old and accumulating injuries and just going to have to live with it and take pills and medicine. But at the same time, like I mentioned in the first video, my grandmother died of Alzheimer's. My mother had cancer for 25 years and died of pneumonia. My friend Ceci at work died of esophageal cancer. I know several other people that have cancer or are currently in remission. I know a number of people that have diabetes and have to take insulin and other medications and have all kinds of other problems. When you have high blood sugar, you're basically a victim of inflammation. So joints tend to wear out faster, and all kinds of tissues in your body can swell, and that swelling can cause pain and discomfort. Some of that is just liquid that you retain. That's part of the inflammation process. Most heart disease is related to inflammation. We were led to believe that saturated fat and cholesterol and LDL and all that were the culprits, but really what it is, especially in the coronary arteries or the arteries in the neck, is you get inflammation in the arterial walls, primarily from diet, and those inflammations get perforations, and they're essentially wounds. And so plaque, which is made of cholesterol and other substances, cover the wounds as like a bandage. And when there's perforations in those wounds, small LDL particles actually can become embedded in the arterial wall. But you don't get those plaque accumulations because you have cholesterol or you ate saturated fat. You have them because you're inflamed. So you'll notice if you look at the current studies that there's no statistical correlation between blood lipids and mortality, meaning it doesn't matter how much cholesterol you have. It doesn't predict whether those plaques are going to accumulate and cause heart disease, which is what was thought in the past. So when your health improves and you stop fearing these things, for people like me, I always had an interest in fitness. I spent a lot of time in the gym working out, and I kept getting fatter. I kept experiencing more pain, more joint pain. My feet hurt all the time. My neck hurt sometimes. My lower back hurt a lot. My hands hurt. My hands and my feet could not keep up with me, and all the while I was still putting on fat, no matter how strong I got. And I used to be able to leg press a lot. I would work out at least 1,200 pounds on the leg press, and there was plenty of times when I pressed over 1,600 pounds. It was everything I could get on the sled, and there was only one other person in the gym who lifted that much when I was there. So we used to try to do it together because it took so long to load and unload those plates. So, as much as fitness and exercise can help you have a clearer mind, the diet I think is more powerful. In fact, I think in overall health, it's 80% diet and probably 20% exercise. And of course, I think it's the same way with mood. I think 80% of your mood is your diet and 20% is your exercise. And of course, there's the psychological aspects, your frame of mind and what thoughts you dwell on and all that, what messages you give yourself. But I think the diet is a very powerful way to change that. There's nothing anybody likes more than feeling better overall. So a big part of the transformation is going from Mr. Sad Face to Mr. Happy Face. And who doesn't want that for everybody, you know? I like to talk about the information because to me the information is key. I consumed an enormous amount of information starting in January 2017 all the way up to the current time, and it's April 2018 right now. I got some little notice from my Audible account saying I'd listened to over 50 books, which blew my mind. I didn't realize it was that many. Now, not all my books were about nutrition or fitness or ketogenics or anything like that, but the vast majority of them were, and I listened to many of them more than once. In fact, this book right here was the first one. This was suggested by my buddy Aaron. This got me started. This is one of 3 books I've listened to from Gary Taubes. You can see his name there at the bottom of the cover. This is one of the shorter books, I believe. I believe he wrote Good Calories, Bad Calories first, and it was suggested by other people to write something a little shorter. And of course, I think he included some additional or some new information in it. Because the original book was big and long. It's over 600 pages. But you know, if you're a voracious reader or you're really interested in a subject, you could just go straight to Good Calories, Bad Calories. It's not a diet book. It's more about the history of diet and the impact on mankind. So there's no meal plan in there. But for somebody like me, that was the thing I needed. Those are those supporting facts, that supporting history that reminds me what I'm doing. So this is where I kicked it off. I don't know that everybody else needs to kick it off at the same point, but it worked for me. It absolutely fascinated me and captured my imagination, my mind. This is one of his other books, The Case Against Sugar. Naturally, you read one good book from an author and you're fascinated, you're going to read the next. So I believe he wrote this one after Why We Get Fat. And I recommend this one as well. Now, I'll say something about it. I'm dyslexic, so I don't read text any more than I have to because it's very taxing and very time consuming. So I signed up with Audible, which is now owned by Amazon, and I listen to these things primarily through my phone, either on headphones or in the Bluetooth of my car. I have a desk job. I sit in front of the computer. I listen to it, the audiobooks through my computer at work while I'm working. I do a lot of drawing and stuff like that, so I can listen to the radio or audiobooks or podcasts. I love podcasts too. So that's one of the reasons why I was able to get through so many, especially long ones like this. Good Calories, Bad Calories. Fascinating book. Very long. Like I said, over 600 pages. I spend a fair amount of time sitting in traffic, so I decided a long time ago that I could listen to music like I used to, like probably a lot of people do, or I could start learning things because I like learning new things almost as much as anything else in life. You know, it's a great pleasure. So when learning new things met up with improving my health, you know, I was totally on board. So I listen on the job sometimes when I'm working. I listen when I go for a walk. I listen when I take the dogs for a walk. I listen when I'm working in the yard. I listen when I'm sitting in traffic. I listen whenever I'm doing something where I don't have to listen to something else. That's not that I don't watch TV or movies or something like that when I can. I do, but I can really only do that at home sometimes. So I encourage everybody to carve out some time to listen to audiobooks or read books. I know my dad in particular, he likes to read a nice printed hard copy. Some people like a tablet. There's nothing wrong with how you do it. Even phones can read text to you in a machine voice, even if you can't get the actual audio book. This is another really powerful book, Tripping Over the Truth by Travis Christofferson. This one deals a lot with cancer and explains the Warburg effect and a lot of other cancer research. It's part ketogenic and it's part the history of cancer research and part other medical breakthroughs or scientific breakthroughs in the treatment of cancer. This is a very, very powerful book, and this is probably one of the most important books we could read because it addresses cancer. And who the hell is not afraid of cancer? Who does not know somebody with cancer? Who is not afraid of getting cancer? So you answer those questions for me. This is a really good place to start. There's a couple other books like this that I haven't read yet because they're not available in audiobook form. But I'm probably going to just have to pick up the hard copies. Now, one of them is over $100 a copy. It's a very rare book, and it's kind of the one that started it all. But I think I'm going to have to get it. If you notice here, it's written by Travis Christofferson, but the foreword is written by Dominic D'Agostino. And Dominic D'Agostino is a researcher who works in the lab, and you're going to see him a lot in podcasts and TED Talks and stuff, delivering some high-powered information. So keep an eye out for him. Here's basically another cover for the same book. It just depends. This is one of the audiobook covers, and I think the previous one is the standard cover for the print version. And then here's another super powerful book. This is The Obesity Code, written by Dr. Fung, Dr. Jason Fung, who you can find on Facebook, YouTube, and lots of other places. He's a phrenologist. He treats people with kidney disease. He's an actual MD. He has a clinic. I believe it's called the Institute for Intensive Dietary Management or something like that. I believe you can sign up with them online and get some very affordable support. It's like $30 a month or something like that, and they do group stuff online to help people. So a lot of his patients, have failing kidneys, but they're failing because they have diabetes, and they have diabetes because they're obese. And they're obese and have diabetes because they're insulin resistant and they have high blood sugar. Really, it's all related, right? You'll find out that most diabetics, most people with high blood sugar, die from heart disease. As much as high blood sugar could kill you, it's typically managed until the inflammation or the consequence of inflammation causes heart disease severe enough to kill you. So I don't know how many people out there are horrified by type 2 diabetes like I am, but a lot of people go blind. They have to have feet amputated or legs amputated. They suffer from neuropathy, and all the while they're taking medication. They're taking insulin to lower their blood sugar. They're taking metformin or other drugs to help cram sugar into the cells and get it out of the blood to keep your blood sugar levels from getting too high. But the problem is kind of twofold. I think high blood sugar and obesity and insulin resistance is kind of misunderstood, because one of the reasons why people become insulin resistant is, first, they've been releasing a lot of insulin, and so the cells are have built a tolerance to the insulin, and it takes more and more insulin to get them to absorb sugar and cram it into the cells. I mean, that's one of the ways we put on fat, is that insulin triggers the cells in your body, particularly the fat cells, to take sugar out of the blood, turn it into fat, and store it. And as long as fat cells are getting an insulin signal, they don't want to release the fat, they just want to store it. But the second part of the problem is in insulin resistance is not just that the cells tend to become sort of desensitized, but also that the cells are full of sugar. and when they're full, naturally they're going to resist absorbing more. This is one of the things you'll learn from Dr. Fong. He likens it to the train conductors in Japan, who the guys who stand on the platform, and it's their job to pack more people into the cars. And that's essentially what you do when you give people more insulin and more drugs to lower their blood sugar. They're forcing the cells to absorb more sugar, and that sugar sitting in the cells causes the inflammation. It causes infections. That's one of the reasons why people get lesions, especially on their legs. They get these nasty sores, and it's one of the reasons why nerves stop working in the legs and the extremities and cause the neuropathy and the eye damage, the thing that makes you go blind. It's all this excess sugar. Well, a surprise, everybody, when you stop eating carbohydrates, your blood sugar goes down and these problems go away. But Dr. Fong talks about all that, and he talks about the different types of fasting, because a lot of people just don't understand diet. They don't understand not eating carbohydrates. They don't understand the difference between a piece of bacon and a piece of bread, apparently. So he uses a lot of intermittent fasting type skills in order to help people lower their insulin, which also it works very well for lowering blood pressure, which is a super common problem. And this is a book that talks a lot about the food. You'll see Maria Emmerich is quite popular in the keto world. She talks a lot about food. I believe she's a nutritionist, so no surprise there. She's also a good one to read up on when it comes to managing your hormones and stuff like that, especially women. You know, they have problems losing hair, and we all have problems with gaining weight. Any other number of hormone related problems. She's a really good resource. So I can't say enough good things about her either. It's a great book. And she has other books, and she has pretty good presence online, and I believe you'll find her on YouTube. So, as I mentioned, a lot of the books consume, I consume as audiobooks. So, for you people who are not familiar with Audible, Audible is a service where you sign up, you basically pay $14.99 a month. For $14.99, you get one free book to listen to. You can buy other books to listen to through the service. The price of books goes from like $1 to probably $30, and then you do get chances to buy additional bundles. So you say, $30, you can get 3 more books. So you could conceivably buy some extra credits for $30 and listen to you could listen to 3 books that cost $30 for each for $30. So there's deals like that. I know it's a little pricey, but for people like myself who are dyslexic, it's a godsend. And not everything's available, but a lot of things are. It's, as far as I know, it is the most comprehensive service for audiobooks. There's also YouTube. Like I said earlier, I love podcasts. There's lots of interviews. If you go to my Facebook group, which is called the Ketogenic Fasting Project, I list all kinds of great YouTube videos and websites in there for people to find. So I'm a big believer in that. There's some really good stuff out there. One of those great sources is the Joe Rogan podcast. Now, Joe Rogan, he was the host of Fear Factor. He was on a sitcom called News Radio, I believe, and way back when he was in a baseball show, Hardball, I think it was. Anyways, he does a podcast. He basically talks to a lot of MMA fighters because he's an MMA announcer and he's a big jiu-jitsu guy. He's also a stand-up comedian, interviews a lot of comedians, but he also does a lot of health and fitness, which is very interesting. He'll have guys like Dominic D'Agostino and a whole slew of other PhDs, MDs, researchers, biologists, trainers on there. So again, it's a great resource. keep in mind, podcasts, there's no restrictions on things like cussing and swearing and stuff like that. And he's a stand-up comedian, so you're going to hear stuff. There's a lot of pot smoking, drinking, and all kinds of stuff that goes on his show. So don't be too shocked. But if you stick to the diet and fitness based shows, you probably won't be too offended if you're one of the sensitive type. High Intensity Health, that's another podcast. Fantastic interviews, lots of MDs, PhDs, and specialists. And again, another person, another group. It's actually a husband and wife team. Probably a little less formal than Joe Rogan, and but a little more down to the facts. It's a great show. Lots of short podcasts. I highly recommend finding them on YouTube as well. And you'll find all kinds of stuff like this. Eric Westman, who writes some of the books he's written with Jimmy Moore, is a famous ketogenic author, radio personality. You'll find stuff like this posted where he gave lectures to groups. And they've been posted on YouTube for you to watch for free. As you can see, they got quite a laundry list of important people that will appear at different venues talking about things like diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, which are intimately entwined with cancer and immune disease. Here's another one I came across. It's I got squirreled away on my with Jeff Volek. Jeff Volek has written quite a few books, which I'll probably cover later on. And here's yet another one. Somebody newer to me, but I'm not even going to attempt the name. Well, I guess I better. It's Beth Zupik Kadia RD, so I think she's a registered dietitian. This was a good video too. As you see, it's 46 minutes. Okay, I realize a lot of people are kind of adverse to consuming a lot of books and videos and stuff, but really, what's more important than health? So, as I mentioned in the previous one, I cured arthritis. Took a big bite out of my psoriasis, which was really bad. Increased my fitness level. My lung capacity actually went up just out of the blue. I noticed that when I started working out, I wasn't running out of air, which was usually my first limitation. And like I said, I have a clearer mind. There's no two ways about it. My mind is sharper. When you first get into a state of ketosis and your carbohydrates are all gone and stuff, it can be kind of euphoric. Not everybody has that sort of euphoric feeling, but a lot of people do. And as I mentioned, that all helps your mood. You just feel more positive, and I think a lot of that is just better chemistry, better body chemistry, and there's fewer things bothering you. So I covered a lot of the information sources there with the books and the podcasts. Part of the problem is not just taking in the new information, but realizing we've been kind of brainwashed by a long history of misinformation or bad science, non-science, whatever you want to call it. In the books, you'll find out that a lot of this goes back to the influence of Ansel Keys, who's attributed with developing the K rations for the soldiers for the military, obviously. And he was one who decided that the problem was saturated fat. And in spite of his cherry picking of data and a lot of people resisting this, he basically bullied his way along, insisting that he was right. At some point, he hitched his wagon with Senator McGovern, and they started the government initiative that they, I'm going to assume well-intended in trying to improve everybody's health. But when you understand how the misinformation came about and where the new data is coming from, you can experience a better understanding all around. It starts to make sense why we were led to believe what we were. And I think it's all very inspiring because well, every time the budget comes up, or the United States, we hear about the incredible healthcare crisis and the cost. Oops, I dropped my key. Sorry. One of the biggest costs, or the biggest costs, are what they call obesity-related diseases, or diabesity. So the cost of diabetes and obesity dwarfs what we spend on cancer. And people live longer with these conditions. So not only do we spend more on it this year, we're going to be spending more on it for more people longer. You can't pick up a newspaper or watch TV and hear about how obesity and diabetes is a worldwide epidemic. I know a lot of people blame it on the Western diet or the American diet or the typical American diet or whatever. I hear that all the time. But you know what? The Middle East is even worse than we are. They're genetically, a lot of the people in the Middle East are genetically predisposed to diabetes. So they have a much worse incidence. And then you have places like China. They don't have quite as much obesity as we do, but they have a huge diabetes problem, type 2 diabetes. So when it comes down to it, obesity is in a way a progenitor to diabetes or type 2 diabetes, but not for everyone. And in fact, one of the things we'll talk about later is skinny fat people. So you can be relatively thin and still be diabetic. So it's not always goes hand in hand, but typically the more obese your population, the more diabetes you have. This is very true, and it all comes down to excess carbohydrates. So there's a lot of surprises. I mean, one is that it's all reversible, and I'd say the flip side of that is the longer you've been exposed to refined carbohydrates, the less you're likely to be able to tolerate non-refined carbohydrates. But there's hope, and there's still bacon at the store, so nobody has to starve. I think the whole subject's downright fascinating. I mean, you learn a lot about yourself, what's going on inside yourself. You learn a lot about history. You learn a lot about science. So I hope that everybody else can get as fascinated by it as I am. In the future, I'm going to do videos on these subjects. I have a Facebook group that's very small. It started out with just people I knew. I'd say I probably know half the people in there personally, but a lot of them are people I know from other Facebook groups. We're all there for the same reason. It's pretty easygoing little group. It's mostly a place where I store all this information so people can click into a video or go to a website or see a book review. Because I've read a lot more books than I covered today, which I'll cover in future videos or podcasts, whatever you want to call this. But you can find them listed in the Facebook group. All you have to do is let me know you want to join. If I'm already friends with you, I can add you if you request. Otherwise, you just find the Ketogenic Fasting Project and request to join. And also, this is my second video on the subject, so any support is good support. And the best way to support somebody on YouTube is to hit the like button, which is the little thumbs up guy right here, and subscribe. And when you subscribe, you'll get a little notification that there's a new video available. If you're gonna make it on YouTube, you really need people to like your stuff, watch your stuff, and subscribe to your stuff. I mean, that's just how the game is played. So I appreciate any support. I appreciate you guys sharing my videos, and I sincerely hope that it helps other people. Until the next video, this ran a little longer on this one than I want. We're almost a half an hour in. I'm going to make a point to try and keep them short for people, because I know that's one of the biggest obstacles people who haven't succeeded so far, is that they haven't really had the time or the fascination to really consume enough information to make it stay fascinated, stay inspired. So I'm going to do my best to try and keep his videos as short as possible, but I do appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I sincerely hope it helps. Thanks.